Hello and welcome back to another video from Jerba Campervans. Now I'm upstairs here in our rib seat bed store. You can see I've got hundreds of rib seats around me, and today we want to talk about something that's really important. It's basically all the steps that we take to make sure your campervan is as safe as it could possibly be. So I'm going to tell you about how we fit these rib seats. It's really important that you fit seats into campervans in a specific way to ensure maximum safety. So I'll show you how we do it, and I'll show you the strict legislation that we have to stick to when we're doing it, and I'll kind of explain how all that works, and I'll also let you know a little bit more about Volkswagen Qualified and all the things that we have to do to make sure we're recognised as a qualified converter. In a nutshell, how do we fit seats into campervans and ensure absolute maximum safety? Well, let's jump into a campervan, have a look at the rib seat and go through the process. So you can see I'm in the back of this campervan now, and I'm sat on the rib seat bed, and I'll give you a quick demonstration of what a rib seat bed is. Basically, this one's a three-seater. It has a lever, it folds over, locks into place, so you've got all that access underneath, you've got all the storage space inside, and you can basically fold the back part down, make a big double bed. And what's unique about ribs, different from traditional rock and roll beds, is that you have a flat, comfortable sleeping surface on one side, and then when you lift your seat back up and fold it over, you've got nice contoured side, so you can take a seat, sit comfortably in the driving position, put your seatbelt on, nice and happy. But we wanted today to talk about how these are fitted, because you can see that it's quite a big, heavy piece of kit in the back of the campervan, and you as a campervan owner really want to know that your campervan is as safe as it can possibly be. Now, there's quite a lot of information to go over first of all before I show you how we would fit seats like this, the process that we go through. So let's get into it. To start off with, there's two things that you should know. Here at Jerba, what we do is we take a brand new unregistered van, and then we do all the changes in our workshop, and then we register the van from its first registration as a motor caravan. Now, in order to do that, there's some really strict rules that we have to follow and legislation that we have to stick to. But on the flip side of that, if you had a pre-registered van, if you imagine you buy a van that's 4 years old, that's pre-registered. Now, here's the difference. When we take an unregistered van and convert it, we need to be really specific in all of our safety testing and ensure that we are doing everything properly to the highest possible standards in terms of quality and safety. Now, if anyone takes a second-hand van that's already registered, well, there are no rules. So there are no real rules to stick to in terms of safety. So really, you can kind of do whatever you like to that van. It's still registered as a van, and this is kind of why the registration process for a motor caravan is so complicated nowadays. It's easy for us to register from first registration one of our campervans as a motor caravan because we have all that certification. All the vans we do, we'll be first registering them after they've been here to Jerba. In order to do that, we need to have UK small series type approval or full European type approval. Now, what does that mean? Now, they're both the same thing. We have the UK small series testing here, full European type approval. It's the same thing as the UK small series, but it's basically the version that lets you sell from the UK out into Europe. Now, we don't do that, so we don't have to have that testing. There's a couple of other key differences as well. One of them is, as standard, you must have ISOFIX. We don't supply ISOFIX as standard in the vans, so we don't need that type approval. There are a couple of other small differences, but generally they are both very similar. So the small series testing that we do basically consists of a few things, a few different tests. And what they're basically going to do is we will take a brand new shell of a van and we'll fit the seating using very specific materials. We'll use the plates that we use to sandwich on top and on bottom of the floor to make the floor extra strong. It's basically a fittings test. And what they're going to do is they'll take the shell that we provide with the seat as we would bolt it into our van, and they will replicate a dead stop at 30 miles an hour. So they will replicate a crash. That's why they call it crash testing or pull testing. They don't actually crash the van into a wall. What they do is they just replicate that on the fittings by a pull test. So they basically want to check all of the anchorage points in the vehicle. They want to check where the seat belts bolt onto. They want to check how the seat is mounted to the actual van itself. They're basically going to chain this up and use a massive hydraulic rig to pull this in different ways to check out how it stresses the van and to make sure that it is fully approved in terms of safety from the UK small series guys. So they'll do that seatbelt anchorage point, that sort of fittings test, if you will. They'll also do what's called a headrest test, and they basically swing a sort of pendulum into the headrest to make sure that the headrest is safe for when you're traveling in the event of a crash. And the third thing that they'll look at is what's called a seat back moment, and that's to do with the back of the seat. And basically what they want to find out is, in the event of a crash, is your seat going to turn into a bed? You wouldn't want that. That's really unsafe. So they're making sure in the event of a crash that the seat stays as a seat, just like you see here. Now, on the flip side, there is another test that you can do, and it's called an IVA. An IVA is another way that campervan conversion companies can check campervans. So I'm watching back the video and I've just realized that I didn't go into too much detail about what an IVA is. Now, an IVA is an individual vehicle approval. Typically it's used on things like kit cars. So it's a way for someone who's, say, built a kit car to be allowed to put that car onto the road. So they take it for this IVA, and it's basically a visual assessment. And someone will, have a look around it. They won't take any of the panels off, they won't remove any of the trims from underneath. They'll just have a little look around it. An engineer, and this engineer, I'll just visually inspect whether the vehicle is safe or not. How that fits into the campervan scenario. Now, when you first register a brand new van and you want to register it as a motor caravan, you need to have some sort of type approval. An IVA isn't type approval, but it does allow you to register as a motor caravan. Say you're a converter that does 5 or 6 vans a year, and they're all second-hand vans, and someone comes to you and asks if you'll do a brand new van for them. This person's not going to spend, 40, 50,000 pounds on the testing like we have done to get our small series type approval. What they're going to do is they're going to take that one unique individual van that they've done for an IVA, and someone is just going to visually inspect the van. Like I said, they won't remove any of the panels. They'll check that it's in essence roadworthy, but they won't necessarily check the specific safety element of it. So our small series testing is really doing specific safety checks on the conversion that we built in the van, so you know that as a camper van it's as safe as it can possibly be. So I just thought I would jump in here and let you know what an IVA is. In order to have that small series type approval as a company, we have to have ISO 9001-2, and that's basically a quality assurance system. It's so we can know every single part that comes and goes, every single part number, that we have systems, that we have records of everything that happens here, so we can basically give that information to the testing authorities so they know exactly what we're using for the reasons that I just spoke about. So where do rib seats from Scopema come into all this? I've explained about the testing that we need to have and that we do have, and this is really expensive. So when we first set out to do these tests, and you have to remember that these tests are specific to each of our layouts, so we've done 4 different tests. We really have to think about in the very beginning, what are the absolute safest and best seats products that we need to use, because we don't want to have to do these really expensive crash tests all the time. We just want to do it once and we want to get it right with the right products. So we had a look at everything that was available, and rib seats came out on top for a number of reasons which I cover in lots of videos. But from a safety point of view, rib seats are tested before they ever come to our factory too. So not only are they tested as a conversion by us, but rib seats are tested by UTAC, a company in France, which are basically the equivalent of the TUV, the German testing company. It's a European standard for testing, and they'll do testing on all the anchorage points like we talked about, where the seat belts bolt onto, all that kind of stuff, and they only use tested approved seat belts in their seats. So again, they come to us pre-tested with a guarantee of safety. Now, because we put so much effort into the safety aspect of our camper vans, there are some benefits for us as a company too, and also for you as a customer. And a big one is the most recent announcement from Volkswagen. So we are now what's called Volkswagen Motorhome Qualified, and there's only a handful of people, I think there may be 4 now in the UK. You'll see us on the official Volkswagen Commercial Vans website, and we'll be listed there as a motorhome qualified camper van conversion company. So it's basically the seal of approval from Volkswagen to say that we are in some way associated with them. They're happy with the quality of the conversions that we do, and they're happy to put their name on them. So that's massive news for the camper van industry, and it's big news for those of us who've taken these big steps into, you know, assuring safety in the camper vans and making sure all our systems are right and all our systems are in check. So for the Motorhome Qualified badge, there are a few things that you need to have additionally. You need to be an established business for a start. You can't just be someone who started up a year or 2 years ago. You need to have the small series testing that I talked about to ensure the safety of the conversion itself. You need to have the ISO 9001 to make sure your quality and all your systems are in check. And additionally, the last one is you need to be NCC approved. Now, NCC is the National Caravan Council, and they have some really strict testing themselves. And they'll basically come out and they'll look at everything we do in the camper van. They'll look at the electrics, they'll look at the way it's built, they'll look at, is it safe for children up in the roof bed? Is the gas system safe? Are there sufficient gas dropouts? Have we done everything we can do to vent the fridge? They'll look at absolutely everything, and they have loads of documentation that they'll go through, and they'll tell us how we can change our conversions to suit their approval, so we can ensure, again, safety and high quality. They know what they want, and they cover all types of motorhomes. So we got the NCC approval too, and that was a few years ago, and it's been great. So make sure you have a little look on the Volkswagen Vans website. I'll link it below and you can read what they say about us there. Now, I mentioned in the very beginning of the video that I would show you how we fit our seats, why they are so safe. We actually manufacture a few of our own parts, and we have these manufactured, tested and approved. And I'll show you us fitting some of them just right now. So let's jump over to the ramp. We'll have a little look at Rob, who's fitting the base plate underneath the van. So when we fit the seats, if you imagine the seats up above, it's in place, and we need to bolt through the floor. But this is quite a thin floor. So what we actually have is these manufactured plates. We have them pressed for us. And Rob's going to sort of show you where we would fit that. Now, these are thick steel plates, and what we do is we remove all the panels from the underside and gain access, and then we'll reinforce the floor with this plate underneath, and it drills in certain locations using very specific bolts, nuts and washers like I talked about earlier. So it's all right, you can pull that down. So that's the underside, and we have different plates for all of the seats that we fit into the vans. So I'll take you through and I'll show you what it looks like from the top. Now, I showed you in the back of that camper van that was on the ramp, we showed you the metal plates that we put in at the back to make sure it's secure when we bolt the seat in. But there is another metal plate that we put on the top, and that's this one here. So you can see that we've exposed the floor in this camper van, and we've bonded in this thick steel plate, and that will be covered by our insulated floor here. So we have steel plate at the back underneath, steel plate at the front on top. And if you imagine, in the event of a crash, what happens is the seat tries to fold in towards the front. So the front of the seat tries to fold down and pierce through the floor. And the back of the seat tries to pull up, just because of the way the force acts when the van's in a crash, a typical head-on crash. So the plate at the front basically stops the seat being able to pierce down through the floor, keeps it stiff and secure in place. And the one at the back basically stops the seat coming up through the floor. If you imagine it's just bolts going through and penny washers, it's really easy for the seat just to come out, and that's the last thing we want. So these just guarantee that the seat's going to stay fixed, stay safe, and crash in a safe way, for lack of a better word. So yeah, really good. And that's covered by this floor, like I just mentioned. It's a 3-part floor that we have made for us. We use a full sheet, covers the full floor, and it's plywood on bottom and top, and then a special foam that we use in the middle. And that foam also acts as sound deadening. If you imagine in the back of a camper van, the back of a van, it's just a big empty space, so they can pick up a bit of road noise. And this sound deadening floor basically just stops that road noise coming through into the van. That, along with the trimming on the sides, the insulation that we put in, and the seat that we fix in the back, collects all those vibrations and noises from the road. And a good set of tyres will help too. Thanks again for watching another video from Jerba Campervans. Hopefully this has made safety testing and the safety aspects of seats in campervans a little bit clearer for you. Try to give you a bit more information about the legislation and all the things that we've got to do to make sure our vans are as safe as they can possibly be. So thanks again for watching. As always, please make sure that you subscribe, like the video, leave us a comment down below, let us know what you think about this video. Join the Jerba Owners Campervan group on Facebook if you'd like to join our community there, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.